All right, Scott, how you doing today, buddy?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. I'm here, living the good life, so they tell me. But here you are with Hevi-Shot.
Yes,
And you've
sir.
been with them for how long now? It ain't been too long, right?
Been exactly a year. Well, I guess
Exactly a
2
year.
days ago is my 1 year anniversary.
Excellent,
So,
man. That's good stuff. So kind of tell us a little bit what you do with Hevi-Shot and give me like a bio, kind of your snapshot of yourself.
okay. I used to be one of their sponsored shooters,
Okay.
and when they found out that I have a pretty big passion for waterfowl, they thought it would be a good fit for me to kind of hop in here and start trying to sell some of the waterfowl loads, but also expand their center fire line.
Yeah.
So my job title, I'm the director of marketing and sales. So,
Okay. Good deal. So now, what is your history prior to coming to Hevi-Shot? You said you did some competition shooting. Kind of how did you get involved in Hevi-Shot?
So I own a private training company, which I started when I first got out of the Army. So teaching primarily civilians and law enforcement how to use their firearms more efficiently. So I was on the range 6-7 days a week, and I ended up not. I started having some health issues. So my doctor ran a full blood panel and found that my lead levels were through the chart. And I was doing a lot of unsafe things now. I'd show up to the range, I'd clean the range before my students got there without wearing any safety equipment. Well, the whole time eating a sandwich and doing all these different things. And just being around so many different shooters, my lead levels were off the chart. So I started researching and I found Hevi-Shot. They had that lead-free frangible round, and we shoot a lot of steel. So I thought, hey, might be healthier, and I'll just start running that. Well, I ended up becoming a sponsored shooter for Hevi-Shot. And then after about 2 years, they figured, since I was always coming out here picking up ammo and visiting, they decided, well, you might as well just stay here and have a job. So
yeah. No, I like it. And we'll kind of lead in that with the I know we're going to talk ballistics, ammo, and products here in a second, but I kind of want to touch base on the lead ammo side of stuff and the lead levels, right? So we were talking a little bit before we started recording this. You're a prior infantry guy. I'm a prior infantry guy, heavy gunner guy, maul dudes, 240s. I mean, all day long, right? I mean, you're right. We never use lead wipes. We never wash our hands. You're pokey baiting the whole time on the range.
I don't even think they ever talked about it.
Never. I didn't really start hearing about it until SoFleet guys did an interview on it, and they started talking about their lead levels. And I know a couple of those guys. I used to be the retention NCO for 20th Group, so I know a couple of those guys, and they spend more time on the range than us. And I can't tell you how many times I just burning, throwing sunflower seeds in my mouth, touching everything, whatever, putting the in back in the day. And you talking about your health issues. So I had I had some blood work done before, just previous beginning of the year, and some of my stuff was off. And they're like, so you've been in the range a lot. I was like, I just did a full gunnery, and they're like, we need to decon a little bit. So it's a real issue, and it's something that we're just now as shooters. And I teach some classes and done range stuff. I'm an admin guy now, but I always keep getting pulled to do stuff. And to me, any day on the range is better than the office, anyways. But we're really now becoming to the forefront of what the real issues are with lead poisoning, and we should know all the time. That's why we went away from it for ducks, years ago, and the process that it caused. Why, of course, wouldn't the dust particulates and everything work for us too? So saying all that to say that Hevi-Shot, all these products that they have, right, are cleaner, right, they're non-toxic. And I didn't even know about the heavy duty stuff until I started researching it, and we'll get into that in a minute. To me, I really like that because I got a little planking range at the house, and I teach stuff, and we do the church security classes, all the time, and try around. And I was a civilian law enforcement for a short time before I went active duty, and so I mean it makes a difference. And so as we start chipping away with that, I mean I think that's something everybody needs to start being conscious about. Even y'all's upland products and the bismuth and the tungsten. I mean that's stuff that. But to me, I'm sold on, I'd rather spend a little more money, expensive is cheap. We'll go over that in a minute, but expensive is cheap. You get what you pay for, So let's talk about that for a little bit. Now on the Hevi-Shot side, let's go with what, and I got a little screen here, a lot of y'all's products on the side. But so much of your products are non-toxic. You start getting into high density pellets. Because the way you're using this, explain high density pellets and why it's important. Because I'm a waterfowler primarily. I try to do it all, but duck hunting is my real passion.
Oh yeah.
So explain the high density pellets and how that works.
So, like in 1991, when the federal government said no more lead, right?
Yeah.
Because same issues that we're talking about. And so the next cheapest thing for shot shells manufacturers to use was steel. So back then, most of the steel lead shot was running out at about 1250 feet per second. So all they did was just replace the lead. They just used shot because it was cheap, pretty easy to load. But the steel was 7.6 grams per cc. So when we talk about density, all density is how much something weighs with the mass, the volume of it, right? So if it's kind of like a perfect analogy would be a golf ball and a ping pong ball.
Yeah,
they're about the same size, but if you throw them, the golf ball is going to go further and hit harder. And that's the basic concept on density. So when the steel shot was running out at about 1250, we lost about a third of our waterfowl hunters because they were so discouraged because lead would really knock the bird, kill, the birds were dead in the air. Yeah. And then they went steel moving at a slow speed and it was wounding birds. So they got frustrated. And that's actually how Hevi-Shot got started, was based out of innovation and frustration.
Yeah.
So they set out to make something better than steel, and they ended up, using tungsten essentially and a couple other ingredients, and they came out with the original Hevi-Shot, which is 12 grams per cc, which is actually more dense than lead. Yeah. So it's actually a fantastic product. But it's very expensive. Tungsten market is increased in price 5 times from what it used to be.
Oh wow!
So they started playing with different other products and materials, and they came out with our bismuth, which is 8.64 grams per cc, but it's going to be our Rob, guy's like a genius. He just came out with a new formula. The patent just came back, so it's going to be just over. It's going to be just over 9.7. Oh wow! So which is pretty cool. The same price point, so it's going to be more malleable. So you don't have the fractured bismuth like the first run of it. So. We have a 10-1 tungsten product, but it's a blend of a bunch of different materials, and that's our Hevi-X line. Yeah, we're going to be replacing the Hevi-X line. We're going to eventually discontinue the 10-1, and we're just going to be loading the original 12 grams per cc, the original Hevi-Shot. That's going to be in a 25 count box this year. Yeah. At the same time. Oh wow! So that's what you're going to want to run. That stuff. Yeah. I used it this last weekend. On a waterfowl hunt, and then in the afternoon we would go hunt pheasant. Yeah, and man, it made me look so good. That's
the way I am, man. Anybody can hunt good with with a shotgun, spread in the package.
Yeah. I was making shots that they just somebody would wound a bird and it would be sailing quite a ways, and I just pull up and I'd put that original Hevi-Shot in the air, and that bird would just fumble
back and clean up.
Yeah, they thought I was like some shotgun.
I'd claim it all day, man. Hey, that's divine intervention right there. The Lord's got his hand on me, help me, like a rock, But man, that's great. And the products you make, and you say that about your Hevi-X is going to be going away. And y'all just kind of tweaked that formula, I think. So you kind of had like a Hevi-X 2.0. Y'all were running a little bit.
Yeah. So we had the original Hevi-X was, honestly, it was just a little bit more dense than bismuth, which one thing that I really admire about all the guys here at Hevi-Shot is they don't settle. They're always trying to improve. They're always trying to be, they're competing against themselves, really. Yeah, yeah. It's really kind of cool to see how they, as far as the sales guy, it frustrates me that they're always changing stuff. But as far as an active, obsessed waterfowler, I am so excited to see that they're constantly, we have probably the most, our research and development division is probably more busy than guys that are, businesses that are 10 times our size. Yeah. Hevi-Shot, even though we are a huge name in the industry, we're a very small company. We only have 23 people working here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we're putting out about 1 million shot shells a week.
Yeah. That's interesting. I told you, y'all have several, you kind of different tiers in my world. I got some sponsors, I got some pro staffs, I got some field staffs, and I'm on the Cabela's and Bass Pros outdoor team. Haybo's one of my big sponsors, partnerships. But in Higdon, I'm on the Momarsh field staff for them. And of course, Higdon's kind of all encompassing with that. And those guys, they did a video last year. We actually come down there and seen y'all. And man, that made it so eye-opening when they was talking about that. Yeah. And all them were talking about, and you're talking about your science, and what triggered that, he's talking about what small company y'all are, or as far as people. I remember that now. It was, everybody was in frame. This is everybody, this is what we do. And those guys are crazy, but it was just real eye-opening. It's not some big mass-produced meal, which I think makes the quality or the QCing process a little better. If everything's mass-produced that way, y'all have a mass-produced product. But if you're that small, I think your QCing is a lot better.
Yes. Yes.
Which is quality control for people who don't know.
Everything that, whenever we're dealing with things that are man-made, there's always going to be, some issues. But with our QC, Ed is our director of operations, and he's cut down our problems per million down to like 7. So it's 7 out of 1 million rounds. 7 of them may not be quite to standard.
Oh, that's better than COVID numbers. I tell you what.
Well, of course, these are real numbers, but
let's not get on that subject. Me and you will be here all day. We're probably on the same side too, so all right. Yeah. That's what everybody. PT kills COVID. Let's go run. We'll be all right. Yeah, they hate me for that, yeah. but that's great. And I was telling you beforehand. So one of my sponsors, I had my contract is ended with them, but I was contractually obligated to use their product for the last couple of years, which was still a fine product. But when I started using them, beforehand I was using heavy metal. And so when they're ended, of course, I'm coming right back to Hevi-Shot. And even this year, looking at me, I'm starting to scan through all the products. I mean, it's just Hevi-Shot, heavy hammer, heavy bismuth, all this kind of stuff. And so we'll kind of talk about that for a little bit. I kind of want to ping on the heavy bismuth for a second. I've kind of gotten into the shooting sub-gauge shotguns. I really like shooting 28 gauge, 16 gauge. A friend of mine, guys at Heaton, they know him. Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels. He has a big lodge called Red Legs Lodge. All them guys, they mostly shoot 410s year round. Sometimes they'll bust out 28 gauges.
Chris Aiken?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Web-Footed Kennels.
Yeah.
So he's
I don't know him personally, but I have a slight man crush on him.
Well, I'll link you. My first podcast was with him, so he's like my big. I've literally talked to him this morning, so he's they're like family to me. I run a club in Arkansas, and I get all my stuff from him as well.
Okay.
So, but his club, Red Legs, they almost always use 410s.
410, yeah. We're seeing a huge amount of people using sub gauges.
And why is bismuth better for those, permanently modified barrels, older shotguns? Why does that work?
It's more malleable, so it's like steel doesn't compress at all. So you have to be concerned about having that full choke. But with the bismuth, it's more malleable, so it doesn't blow out the end of the barrel. Plus, with bismuth, you can go one shot size smaller. Yeah,
explain that.
Okay, so when we're talking about density, one of the great things about density is that you can actually go with something, smaller shot size, but it'll have the same downrange energy as a counterpart. So like with the original Hevi-Shot at 12 density, you can actually, if you normally shoot, steel 3s at ducks, you can actually shoot 6s in heavy, the original Hevi-Shot and have the same energy. So that's just a swarm of pellets. The birds can't fly through that shot pattern. With bismuth, you can go down 2 shot sizes.
Really?
Maybe back up. One shot.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1 shot size on bismuth. So, you can run, 4s or, if you normally shoot 3s and you can run 4s, so you can get more pellets in those smaller sub gauges, which is why the, 28 gauge, man, that seems to be really popular right now.
I hunted with it almost exclusively last year.
Yeah,
even in
a heck of a lot better shot than I am.
Yeah, but it makes you be more honest, Yeah, it really does. In Alabama, I have timber, in Arkansas, I have fields, rice fields, bean fields. So, I mean, you're taking, 40, 50-yard shots out there. But it makes you be more honest for your shot. 12 gauge, you can, pray and hope and sling some up there. And if you just have a wall, everybody shooting, you'll knock a bunch down. But if it's just you, one other person, you're really trying to take your shot. It just seems like that 20. I really fell in love with it. You can just keep shooting it. And when my wife hunted with me, she would use it. I didn't have nothing. It wasn't nothing special. I just had an old 1100. I say old is new, but just 1100 threaded barrel. Changed what chokes I wanted on there, and it worked out fine. But talking about the ballistic sizes and going down, if I was to do like a ballistic chart, let's say I have say I'm going to shoot a 20 gauge. And typically for 20 gauge, let's say I'm usually shooting, 3-inch number 1 or BBs for speckle bellies. If I was to drop down to a bismuth, what would you say? Like if I'm going to shoot bigger geese at, 40 to 30 yards, what could I drop down to?
You could do a 1 really easily on that sub gauge. So I have a lot of my friends that run 2s, and they don't have any issues. Where I have one buddy, here he's like, we're talking like Westerns, right?
Yeah.
Big geese. And he's out there with this little, sub gauge. And, of course I'm short, so I have to have a, 12-inch, 12 gauge 3.5. But he's just knocking them out of the air. And I was like, man, what are you putting in there? He goes, well, you have to shoot them, where they live. It's like, just like everything, shot placement is king.
And on that,
one of those pellets have the same lethality as it coming out of a 410 versus a 12 gauge.
Exactly.
So the individual pellet, they're just as deadly because they're moving just as fast. They have the same density. They're just more pellets in the larger gauges. So.
And if you could do something like that, you talk about 1 or even number 2. So if I could successfully shoot geese with a bismuth number 2 on that, well, then I could use the same shell for geese and ducks, not have to try to swap shells or keep a geese gun, a duck gun, and shift it up. Just say I can just go with number 2s and whatever comes in here, whether it's teal or geese, I'm gonna sling at it, and go with that.
That's exactly what one of the guides where I hunted last weekend. That's what he does. Is he uses heavy bismuth, and I want to say he had 3s in there, but he uses it for everything. I mean, he never, I'd go into another field and I would, if we're going to switch over to pheasant, I'd be switching out. He's like, it's funny because I don't think he realized what I did for the company. So this is why we need to use Hevi-Shot products, because you don't have to switch all that out. He's trying to explain it to me. Thank you for using Hevi-Shot.
Yeah, and you're the marketing guy going like, that's, you say what now? Okay, yeah. Hey, get a banner going,
Exactly. I was like, why did they bring my video camera?
That's really neat. And I knew that the more pliable, but I just wanted the technical term as far as why I could do that. And that's what I got an old Springfield. It's got a modified barrel on it that my granddaddy gave me. That's so old it don't even have a serial number. It's just old pump. And I used to use it exclusively, when I first started hunting, because it's the only thing I had. And I still like duck hunting with it, but I get scared to put certain loads in it because I don't want to mess it up. It has a tradition for it. I still want to use it but I just don't want to mess it up. And I would feel more comfortable shooting bismuth through it than a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, you'll be good to go in there. The only thing that I'd be a little cautious, I think, even though a lot of guys still shoot them through Damascus barrels, the Damascus steel. Yeah. I personally, I don't know if I would, just because I do have a pretty extensive firearm collection. Yeah. I don't know. Even though, they say that you can do it, I don't know if I personally would, because if Damascus, if they're not cared for correctly, they can become brittle. So that's the only caveat I throw out there is that, Damascus probably, just use those for your grouse.
Yeah. It's easy to inspect them, put your scope barrel through there. And and again, if it's not right, then put it on the shelf and, be a family heirloom, that kind of stuff. So, well, you're talking about, and this is going to kind of go into, well, first before I get into this thing. So heavy hammer, I found it this year by accident. I'm in Arizona right now. So I'm trying to get on a cinnamon teal hunt while I'm here. So swung by, I'm on the Cabela's Bass Pro team. So I was actually at the Cabela's in Phoenix, and I was like, I need some ammo, and looked, and I was like, I'll just grab you some Heavy X. It was all gone, but then there was heavy hammer. So I'm flipping it over and I'm like, all right, 15%. And so kind of explain heavy hammer and why y'all felt that was needed to be a product.
So heavy hammer is the, like you said, 15% bismuth. But what's really unique about the heavy hammer is instead of going down a size for the bismuth shot, it's the same shot size as the steel.
Mm-hmm.
So that so you get about 28 to 40% more energy out of each one of those bismuth pellets, because even though they're the same size as steel, they're just they're heavier per counterpart. So I personally love the heavy hammer if the birds are fairly close. I mean, just because it's just, man, it just hits like a hammer when you hit them. I mean, it's pretty solid, and it's actually fast becoming one of our most popular shells. Duck Commander, he loves it. Claudio Ungaro up in Canada, this is what he's making all his guys go to. So,
I know. Martin with Duck Commander, we're on the Frog Talks team together. I was talking to him yesterday about something, and his brother is actually in my club in Arkansas. So it's just everybody knows everybody, I guess. But
it's a pretty small industry, isn't it?
Yeah, you really think about it, it really is. I'm surprised we ain't crossed paths yet originally, but it's neat. And again, I pick everybody's brain, and you start seeing the shots they're making, the stuff they're doing. You're like, all right. Yeah. Well, what's the secret to this? What's as the good book says, what's the red writing here? What's what's the truth on this? So explain to me. So go ahead.
Oh, and kind of expanding on the heavy hammer, this year we're coming out with the heavy hammer upland.
Oh.
So it's going to be geared towards we have a load for pheasant, load for like mid-sized birds like chuckers and grouse, and we have even a smaller load that's going to be for a premium like dove and quail type thing.
I actually got to do some pheasant and chucker hunting up here a couple weekends ago for the first time. You're running the dogs and stuff, and man, that was a blast. So it's funny is my passion is waterfowl hunting, but I've been going on more upland game hunts than I have ever. And I'm really enjoying it. I think my favorite part though is watching the dogs work. I'm a dog guy. My dog, she's a hunter retriever champion, master hunter. All that stuff's great, and I love it. But she's a duck dog. I like taking her with me right now. I got a 4-year-old son and a 4-month-old daughter, and my wife constantly sends me pictures of her laying in the bed with them, laying in the floor. And to me, that's more important than any duck or whatever she picks up.
Yeah.
But most time, if I'm going hunting, she's going with me. Even if I can't take her, then sometimes I just feel like I don't want to go. I've taken her deer hunting before. Let her sit in the.
My black lab, my hunting buddy, died 6 months ago.
Oh, that's rough.
Man, it was rough. I'm like, not very emotional, anyways. But it's like, God, I was a little weenie.
That's hard stuff.
I said I'd never own another dog. But my new puppy will be born on January 3rd. So.
That's what you gotta do, man. That's why my colonel, his dog died right before we got here, and his family was all upset and stuff. And I was like, hey, the best thing to get over an old dog is a new dog. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I said you're not gonna replace them, and it's never gonna be the dog you had, but it's gonna be a different dog. Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So now you got me somber. But yeah, so back to the upland stuff. I mean, it's great. Now, explain to me when you are marrying, say, like the bismuth or the steel together, are they flying at a different speed? Are they delivering at a different time?
Yeah, well, if you ever watch it on slow motion, because that's what I've always heard was, the steel pushes into the bismuth, and that's why it's people that don't quite understand the science of it. But Ed and Rob, they do so much testing on it. I've actually seen like the slow motion footage, and that bismuth is just kind of goes out just a little bit further than the steel right out of the gate. So it's not being distorted at all by it, but it's just that shot pattern is just pretty. I mean, the string, I should say.
String.
It's really perfect, yeah.
And that's one thing I know. A lot of people don't realize, they'll pattern their guns, but they don't realize. Patterns is great, and that is a tool, but shot string is different.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and also a lot of things we do is even when I pattern sometimes we do it on the swing. So the swing shot and then see how that pattern goes, because most time, very rarely you actually you're swinging and shooting. So I actually like seeing what that swing shot looks like on a pattern as well.
Well, I'm going to steal that. That is, yeah, I'm going to make a note on that. I'm going to do that.
Trademark Kenny Quarter. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can do like, you know, say you got your duck target on there, but if you put it on a good 4x8 sheet or something and paint it, just spray can it white like you do planking target, so you can see how your swing is. And if you pull the trigger as if you were, if it was kind of moving, you got to take some liberties there. But if you do it that way, you can kind of see how that swing shot is going out there. And to me, that's a real valuable tool to look at. I would have
never even thought about that. Good deal.
All right, so I'll send you my resume tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm stealing it. You'll see a how-to video on our Instagram page.
I like it, but y'all might be one of the first ones. That'd be neat to see it on the big target and see. You know, I would think, because it's flying at such a speed, I would think that your pattern would hold, especially if you're leading it. The pattern would still be there, but it'd be more obtuse or octagonish.
That's what square. About oval.
Yeah.
Instead of that's what I'm thinking.
It'd be pretty neat. So maybe we run some tests on that. So all right, my brain's empty now. I ain't got no more. I'm just kidding.
I'm former infantry. You put something in, something falls out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was like, my recruiter said, "What do you want to do when you get in?" I was like, "I want to shoot things and blow stuff up." He's like, "All right, you can sign here. You know, what I make on my ass about it don't matter. You're good. You're good. Infantry's fine. You know, the infantry's fine." I was like, "Yay!" You know?
I did the same thing.
So talking about it, a lot of the research I've done is the products, because it is non-toxic, what you're using burns a lot cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's going to benefit you in the long run on the weapons you're using also, or your gun. It's going to drop the time of cleaning. You're going to run it cleaner, smoother. So kind of explain, you know, a burning cleaner is a lot better. He's talking about the, you know, inhale and everything for one being non-toxic, but also the wear and tear on guns, cleaning guns, using guns. I'm like you, I can tear up a steel hitch, right? I mean, I'm an old bang bang, you know, so I usually don't even clean my guns throughout the year, dunk them in water, you know, field strip them, wipe them down, throw them back, and we go from there, you know. So kind of explain how the burning process and what y'all use benefits the gun world on that.
So they use a blend of powders to try to keep it clean, but also so you don't get the huge flakes that you get from other brands that are just kind of sitting in there. And if you just think about it, if your engine, if as it was burning gas or diesel or whatever, if it was leaving those flakes in that engine, it's going to have odd wear, right? It's definitely not going to be functioning at its a real high efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So and that's kind of the concept, is keep it clean. In fact, our 9mm guys, you shoot it and then you pick up the brass and it looks completely clean on the inside, which is just wild to me. It's just it's like a hand loader's dream. You don't have to clean it. You just prime and go. So.
Well, I want to get into your duty line because I actually just recently found out about it, honestly. Mm-hmm. And before I do, kind of one thing I was talking about, and me and Chris talked about in our podcast with dog training, and I've trained horses before, and a lot of things with a lot of that stuff is people want to talk about cost, right? And my big thing is expensive is cheap. You know, you get what you pay for. And I used to be the guy, I'm figuring out the price per shell, because most time, I'm a 3 shell per duck kind of guy, and speed loading of, the 3, but when you get really good at that backup shell, hold it in your teeth and load it. But don't do that. But when you're using rounds like this, you're not typically having, as long as your shot placement is correct, you're not having to do that second or third shot. Exactly. So if you want to go to expensive is cheap world, is you're getting what you pay for, and in the long run, it's going to end up saving you money.
Yes. And that's actually exactly what my neighbor, really a hunter. And just because he's my neighbor, I thought it was pretty cool. He switched over to Hevi-Shot products this year.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that he mentioned, was that it's actually, for him, it's about the same price because he's actually shooting less and with fewer wounded birds. And, he's I couldn't get him free shotgun shells when I started working here, but I became everybody's best friend a year ago.
Yeah, that's what. And one thing I didn't realize beforehand, I got some mechanics in the family, and they taught me and start using premium gasoline, right? And I'm like, why in the world do I use so much more expensive? It's like run your 2-3 tanks in it and then start checking your mileage.
Yeah.
I had a little Honda Civic at the time, and I would get nearly 100 more miles to the tank. Right.
Oh, wow.
So running premium versus regular unleaded. And, I figured up in my head, and I'm either breaking even or I'm actually saving money and I'm putting a better product in the car to make it run better.
And I noticed that. I'm like everybody else when I first started, waterfowl hunting. I would go and I'd buy the cheapest stuff, because it was almost like, it didn't make sense to buy something because I was killing ducks, but it was, it just wasn't when it's kind of one of those things where you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And I had a older gentleman with me one time, and he's like, you need to try this, and he let me try some of the original Hevi-Shot, and it was such a huge difference. It was like I had a confidence in the shot. Like this last weekend, I knew that when I bring up the gun, I knew as long as I had my lead right, I knew that bird was going to draw. And it's just so for me, Hevi-Shot translates to if I don't knock that bird out of the sky, I know it's 100% me. Now it's not my gun, it's not my it's not the shot.
Which is a big point, because a lot of times, and I had this happen before, where I start losing confidence in my shooting capabilities because I'm crippling. Then you said even seeing feathers fly, and you're like, what am I doing wrong here? And a lot of times it's not necessarily you, because your pattern, as long as you've got the the right stuff, your pattern is there. So a lot of times it's what you're slinging at them. They just keep flying and wave bye to you. I'll go die a mile down the road later on today. A lot of times you cripple them and they'll die later in the day. Something like that, which isn't a good conservationist part type anyway. So well, let's get into the heavy duty for a little bit. So while we still have time, first of all, before we start talking about your heavy duty, you teach shooting, defensive shooting, tactics over skill. What is your EDC? What are you carrying every day?
Right now, SIG 365 XL with the Hollow Sun.
Yeah.
RDS on there. So that's
okay.
So
all right.
That's my EDC.
That's your EDC? Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious, you get that, and I'm not hating. I don't run any Glocks anymore. Nothing wrong with Glocks. I've just like trying those stuff. And I've really been on a Walther kick here lately. So
can't go wrong with the Walther.
So I've been carrying a Q4 tack with a Swamp Fox, on it. And so I've really been enjoying that. My wife, she's been shooting PPS, kind of fits her frame and her size. And I bought their Q5 Pro, their SF, steel frame, just because I wanted it and it looked cool. I was like,
and it feels so good in there.
Oh, it is awesome. Man, it is awesome.
I seen it last night. Shooting one of those.
Really?
So, he let me run it, and I'm like, you just cost me some money.
Yeah, is that not? It's out of the box. It is a cool. Just out of the box. That trigger, it's cool. So I was just curious. When I know somebody actually carries, I like to see what their setup is. So, which SIG's a good product too. So, but on that, talking about planking and stuff like that. So y'all have this new duty round. I say new. Y'all have had it for a little while because it's what brought you into the company. But I'm just really finding out about it and kind of explain it to us.
So it's in fact, it's just it's a match grade frangible round. So just like it's a lot of times people will compare it to, Full Metal Jacket. I'll be like, well, this is 30% more than this. Why? And that's like comparing apples to oranges. You need to compare it to match grade or frangible, and ours just happens to be both frangible and match grade. I've shot a lot of frangible in my career, and what really impressed me about the heavy duty before I even started working for Hevi-Shot was the accuracy. It is insane on how consistent it is. So that it's basically compressed. A lot of different ingredients go in there, but the two primary ones are nickel and zinc. Iron and zinc. And when it's just compressed powder. In fact, when you watch them make it, it's kind of cool. It kind of the machine is actually similar to what they make pills for.
Oh yeah.
And it's basically the same thing. And then we have a bunch of other processes that we have to do it. But when that bullet hits something hard, like a steel plate or something like that, it turns into dust. There's zero fragmentation. It's pretty impressive. This year, we are switching over to instead of a flat point, it'll have, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's going to have a rounded.
Yeah, I can see the roundness to it.
Yeah, but this coating on it, it's called a super coating. It's not Teflon or Moly. It's some other. I'm not even going to pretend I know the name of it. There's times that Ralph and Ed and Lisa and Rob will be in here talking about products, and I have to be in the meeting because I have to market it. And one time my wife texted me, she goes, "How's your meeting going?" And I text her back and I said, "I think they're speaking English."
You just nod and agree. Yeah, Roger, sir. Yes.
But that with that super coating, I'm really excited because it's going to be durable enough because where, most frangible rounds, if you drop them on the cement, you're not supposed to put them in your gun because it causes fractures throughout them. Mm-hmm. And that's with every frangible round. But with this new super coating, I was actually trying to break some this morning. Hit a little hammer. It's absolutely amazing, but it still has that frangibility. So when it hits, it disintegrates.
Well, explain to us Frangible and Max Grade and why that's important.
Okay, as far as match grade, so usually most manufacturers, they have a like regular ammunition. When you go and buy them, it has a 10 to 13% tolerance as far as bullet weight and powder. So it can vary quite a bit. And that's just regular, white box range stuff, right?
Yeah.
Match grade traditionally is 3 to 5% tolerance.
Okay.
Where ours is like 3% tolerance on the bullet weight. It doesn't happen. Our bullets are very consistent. They're always exactly the same. Our powder, I think that they have it set for a 2% tolerance. So it's actually the precision of the components and the way everything's made, consistency. Because as a fireman instructor, mm-hmm. Consistency is everything.
Oh yeah.
You can screw up as long as you keep screwing up exactly the same. You'll hit the same spot.
Yeah.
So that's why it's match grade. So you can actually, it's a much more accurate round because it is so consistent.
And frangible, what is the definition of frangible as well, and how that applies to?
So frangible it's a much safer round. You're not going to get any ricochets or anything like that. So even if you're punching paper, if it hits a rock, it's not going to go flying off. It just turns into a dust.
Yeah.
When I first started shooting their frangibles, I took a bunch of balloons and I hung them up around steel targets because I wasn't sold on it. And when your whole career is based on teaching people how to shoot, mm-hmm. That goes away really fast as someone gets hurt.
That's right.
So whenever I would change gears, I would go out and I would invest a lot of time and money just to making sure that it would be the safest environment for my students. And I have to say, after shooting it, so I was hitting the steel plate, the balloons were moving, nothing was happening. And then I put in a full metal jacket and I shot and 20 balloons go away. It was like, I didn't realize that, because it's, as you know, you're on the range, you get hit with stuff quite a bit. And,
yeah.
It's just part of the game.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, when it hits the targets, they think it just leaves an imprint and drops down or smashes it. When the full metal jacket, it's shrapnel and it's spreading.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's in a 360 donut. So for people who don't realize, so if you're shooting your steel target and you had balloons all around it, if you're shooting a full metal jacket, it's essentially sharding everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if
little piece of shrapnel.
And if you look at it on the ranges, a lot of time, even my little home range I have, I explain to my wife the process. If you look on the line on the ground where all the steel targets are, in front of it, it's chopped up. It's a cut line. Almost like you just, it's perfect.
Line that you can get.
Yeah, almost like you took a weed eater and just,
yeah.
And then people don't realize, well, that's part of those shards. And I mean, I've had it come back before, because, we do, like I said, I'm an infantry guy too, so I do dumb stuff sometimes. But, I've been too close to those steel targets sometimes and get that little pep and you're like, I need to back up a little bit, Yeah. And we were doing what they were calling a QRD class when I was in Kandahar. They pulled us to start teaching a lot of the desk people, the QRF stuff. We was having a lot of green on blue attacks. And so, like, if they're sitting at the desk and they get up and how they shoot, and we took desk and chairs to the actual range, put them in front of the targets,
Fantastic.
and these were handmade targets that the Afghan army made. So leave that as it may. But then we started walking the lines with them. And as they're shooting these targets with the 9mm, rounds are coming back. Not just a little bit. I mean, it's a complete ricochet, and you talking about pucker factor, even on a flat range, you're like, hey guys, and you got 20 people running down the line, and as I call it, ceasefire. I think a lot of people don't realize that stuff. Man, that happens. When we can get into angles and 6 inches and how we can talk about that for days, but when you have a frangible thing like this, it just makes your safety a lot better, and you can do a lot more. I can't tell you, talking about teaching, especially the 20th group guys or something like that. I mean, they've got guys marking targets with guys shooting on the range at the same time. And, that's just what they do a lot of times, get back and forth. And I feel a lot safer with frangible targets than, full metal jackets and stuff like that. So that's a big deal on that. And y'all offer that in 2 calibers right now, correct?
Right now, just 9mm.
Just 9mm. Okay.
Yeah. What we wanted to do was when they first came out with the heavy duty, we had 380, 9, 40, 45, 10, 38 special, just a collage of rounds. And we had another company that was actually loading them for us, and they did a really poor job. They're no longer in business, which is probably probably a good thing for everybody. So what we decided to do is scale back, and since we're
okay, so I'll just going in and out there for a second, but because of all that you were talking about, you strict to the 9mm because of making, creating, and that's the kind of the go-to round for a lot of that stuff. So you can use that more. Okay. So, well, man, I think I've taken up enough of your time for the day.
Yeah.
I know you got some rest to be.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Any final thoughts? You talk about the new products y'all got coming up. I know you brought about the new Hevi-Shot.
Yeah, so the main 2 products that we're coming out with is the Heavy Hammer Upland. I think that's going to be a game changer for states that can't use lead, or if they just want a superior round. I mean, it's going to be a really good product. Personally, what we're calling Heavy XII, which is kind of blending Heavy X and the original Hevi-Shot.
Yeah.
Because 25 count box of that 12 density, that's going to be a complete, going to be in 12 and 20 gauge, but when we get some 28 gauge, I'll send some to you.
Man, yeah, I'll field test whatever. So
yeah.
Well, hey, Scott, I appreciate it, man. It was enjoy talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, you be safe.
All right, man, you too.